Hi guys, welcome back. I've got another video, that's the word, and I'm going to show you the texture paste in matte and in crackle, and we're going to ink it and see what happens. Now bear in mind you can use your distress paints, your distress crayons, your spray stains, any of those things on there, and it will you'll get different intensities of colour, but I'm just going to use the distress ink. I figure most people probably have distress ink pads. I haven't tried oxide, but again this is just experimental stuff, so you can just play around with it. So I'm going to use these, and these have like a weird they're very soft pastes. They remind me of like marshmallow. You know, the marshmallow in a tub. Oh my god, yeah. So the stamp that I used is this Tim Holtz Random Gatherings, and I used it for all my samples for all these this week. So if you have missed my collage medium one, go back to that one, and if it's already on, then there'll be a one on the grit paste. And it's just a Random Gathering stamp that I'll show you. It's well loved. I've had it for many years. And so on camera, I don't know how well you're going to pick this up, but this is the texture paste in the matte, and it's just a texture paste, but it's more translucent than I thought it was going to be. I was thinking it was going to be like a really solid color, like just solid white, but I only put a thin layer on all of these samples. I only put a thin layer on just to play around with and see what it would do. Obviously the thicker it is, the more opaque it's going to become, but I thought this was pretty cool because you could, well, we'll see what the ink does to it, but I thought you could get some cool texture and you can still see your image through the paste. The ink that I used was a jet black archival ink, because that way once it's dry it's permanent, so it won't react with the moisture from texture paste. And then this is the texture paste in the crackle, and this bottom bit, obviously again I did a thin layer. Oh sorry, hello camera. You can see the crackle there, and you can bend this, like it doesn't, like some crackle paste will actually chip off. I guess if you've got really thick crackles, maybe it would, because it's just the thickness of it, but something like this, and this is very thin texture, obviously the thicker you do have it, the bigger the cracks will be. But I was still impressed, and like even up here there's really fine cracks, which I don't know if the camera's going to pick up just yet. Hopefully it'll do it when I ink it. But I was chuffed because there's a bigger section down there, and it's got this nice texture, obviously because it's texture based. So I'm going to start with the regular, but the texture paste, and I'm just going to use some Brush Corduroy Distress ink. I just figured it's a neutral colour, it would work quite nicely for this. And then I'm going to ink up with a blending tool and just do like you would ink anything, just from the medium out onto it, and just get that ink on there. And remember to turn your paper, not your arm. Don't do this. I've done that before, especially if you've got card blank. You'd like, oh, I don't want to get ink on the back. Now I don't worry about it, because it's uncomfortable for one. And two, you don't need to do that. You get weird amounts of ink on there, especially if you want just a light dusting, but you know what I mean. I'm just going over that. And then what I'm also doing, this is from the last video, I'm filming them at the same time. I'm just taking a paper towel, I'm just going to rub off the excess. You could leave it like this, you could still spritz it with water and still get some more texture in that, but I'm just, you hear that? That's texture paste, and it's so textured it's taking the bits of paper towel off. That's kind of funny. Right, so there's the texture paste. So it tints, so that's quite cool. So if you're not into like, you hear the texture on it. If you're not into like browns and stuff like that, then use any other colours. You'll get that texture. That's the whole point. So you'll be able to colour it basically, which is one of the very cool things about it. Because a lot of texture paste, I don't know that you can do this with all texture paste, but I'm not an expert. but you can certainly colour these ones, which is awesome. So I'm now going to do the same thing with the crackle, and just going around the edges, same amount of pressure. I'm not, you know, I'm not applying more pressure to this or less pressure to that. I do the same thing. Honestly couldn't tell if I was applying less or more pressure. I just do what I'm doing. I'm going to do that. Wipe off the excess. And there, oh, sorry. And there is the texture on that. So hopefully you can see the nice texture here. I think that's very cool. And then the texture at the bottom here came out really nicely. But even the very fine crackle in here has come out. So it depends how thick it is. I mean, you can see the difference between the edge here, hopefully. I'll see in editing. Hopefully you can see the difference between like that and the bottom one and this very fine. So the thicker you have, the bigger your cracks are going to be. So just bear that in mind. But anywhere there wasn't any texture paste, the paper's just taken it as it is. But everywhere there is, I just think this is so cool. I mean, I've done it over a stamped image, but obviously you don't have to do that. I just wanted something in the background so there was a bit of contrast. But yeah. Very cool. So there's the two side by side, and I hope this was somewhat helpful. I will probably just write on the back which texture paste I've used for each one, and what ink I've used over the top, and then also as a reminder to myself to put down what other distress products you can use with this. Try whatever you've got. You know, you might find there's other stuff that will work too. But as far as distress goes, you can pretty much use them all on it. Don't know about oxide, I haven't tried that yet. I've only tried the ink, but from what I've heard, you can use, like I say, the paints, the stains, the crayons. Go for it. Just try it. So I hope that was helpful, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.